What happened to Jimmy Hoffa? It's a question that's been asked for decades, but tonight at Macomb Community College, a group with insights into the Detroit mob said they know what happened.
For nearly 50 years, a single question has haunted American history. It's a question whispered in back rooms, debated by investigators, and immortalized in film. What happened to Jimmy Hoffa? Theories have multiplied like ghosts, investigations have stalled, and the truth has remained buried under decades of silence and fear. Until now. Recently, at a public forum just miles from where Hoffa disappeared, one of the most credible voices on organized crime, former Colombo family captain Michael Franzese, made an electrifying claim. He said he knows what happened, and when Franzese talks, people listen. He insists the man who pulled the trigger is still alive, and he knows where the body went. Not buried in a stadium or dissolved in a drum. His words, spoken with chilling certainty across multiple interviews, are wet and deep. This isn't just another theory. This is a look inside one of history's greatest cold cases, guided by a man who lived the life. To understand the murder, you must first understand the man. James Riddle Hoffa was not just another mob associate. He was a force of nature. Born into poverty in 1913, he organized his first labor strike before he turned 20, learning a crucial lesson about power. When workers stand together, corporations bend. By 1957, he had clawed his way to the presidency of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. He forged the National Master Freight Agreement, a landmark deal that standardized wages and benefits for hundreds of thousands of drivers. The Teamsters became the largest, most powerful union in America, and Jimmy Hoffa was its king. But in the brutal world of mid-century labor, spirit required muscle. To protect his union from corporate-backed violence, Hoffa made a fatal alliance. The mob offered protection, and in return, Hoffa gave them access to the union's greatest asset, its colossal pension fund. With over $2 billion at his disposal, Hoffa used the fund as a de facto bank for the mob, financing casinos in Las Vegas and construction projects across the country. It was a high-stakes gamble that put him on a collision course with the federal government. In 1967, Hoffa was imprisoned for jury tampering and fraud. But his sentence was commuted by President Nixon in 1971. He walked out of prison not broken, but hardened, determined to reclaim his throne. The mob, however, had other plans. They had grown comfortable with his compliant replacement, Frank Fitzsimmons. Hoffa's return and his threats to expose the mob's infiltration of the Union if they blocked him was a declaration of war. That threat signed his death warrant. The only question was how, when, and who would carry out the sentence.
July 30th, 1975. The air was thick with the Michigan summer heat. Hoffa was scheduled for a 2 p.m. meeting at the Macus Red Fox restaurant. He was to meet with two powerful mob figures, Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone of the Detroit Partnership and Anthony Tony Pro Provenzano, a captain in New York's Genovese family. Neither man would show up. At 2:15 p.m., a frustrated Hoffa called his wife from a payphone, telling her he'd been stood up. It was the last time anyone ever heard his voice. He hung up the phone, walked back toward the parking lot, and in those next few minutes, Jimmy Hoffa vanished from the face of the earth. Investigators believe he didn't go with strangers. Hoffa was too cunning, too aware of the danger. He got into a car with someone he trusted. That trust was the weapon they used against him. Decades of research by crime investigators like Scott Bernstein point to a location just 2 miles north of the restaurant, a property known as the House on the Hill, owned by mob soldier Carlo Licata. It was familiar ground for Hoffa, a place where deals were made. Bernstein's theory suggests Hoffa was picked up by Billy Giacalone, Tony Jack's invisible brother, who drove him to the house for the rescheduled meeting. Hoffa walked in expecting to negotiate. Instead, he walked into an execution. The disappearance spawned a cottage industry of speculation. The most famous theory placed him under Giant Stadium in New Jersey, a cinematic, symbolic grave. But when the stadium was demolished in 2010, the search yielded nothing. Then came the deathbed confessions. Frank Sheeran, a union official and alleged mob hitman, claimed he was the killer. His story, the basis for Martin Scorsese's film The Irishman, was compelling. But investigators found his account riddled with inconsistencies, and many believe it was a final, grandiose act of self-mythology. Notorious hitman Richard the Iceman Kuklinski also claimed credit, but his story too was dismissed as false bragging. Year after year, tips led to dead ends. A horse farm dug up, a suburban driveway excavated, a New Jersey landfill searched. Each time, the result was the same: nothing. The case grew colder, the truth seemingly lost forever. But one voice cuts through the noise with chilling authority. Michael Franzese wasn't a street-level soldier. He was a captain in the Colombo family, the son of the legendary underboss Sonny Franzese. He operated at a level where information about high-profile hits was currency. And Franzese is unequivocal. He states that Hoffa's remains were never buried on land. Wet and deep, that is his consistent claim. Not a landfill, not a stadium, not an incinerator. Aquatic concealment, a place where currents move evidence, decomposition accelerates, and recovery after 50 years becomes a forensic impossibility. The Great Lakes, the Atlantic Ocean, both offer thousands of square miles of cold, dark water. This claim alone demolishes decades of investigative theory. But it's his next claim that is truly explosive. The man who pulled the trigger on Jimmy Hoffa, according to Michael Franzese, is not a ghost from the past. He is a living man, breathing, eating and sleeping somewhere in the American prison system right now.
Franzese's claim, however, stands in direct contrast to the theory held by many of the case's top investigators. Their research points to a different man, Detroit mob soldier Anthony "Tony Pal" Palazzolo. According to informants, Palazzolo used the Hoffa hit to climb the ranks, eventually becoming the Detroit Partnership's consigliere. Wiretap recordings reportedly captured him bragging about disposing of Hoffa's body at a sausage company, a gruesome detail that fits the mob's strategy of total erasure. But there is one insurmountable problem with this theory. Anthony Palazzolo died in 2019. This leaves us with two mutually exclusive accounts. One, from seasoned investigators, points to a man who took his secrets to the grave. The other, from a high-ranking mob insider, insists the killer is still alive, his identity a secret kept within the organization. So, if Franzese knows who did it, why isn't the case closed? The answer lies in the chasm between knowledge and evidence. Franzese claims to possess audio tapes, recordings of an individual close to the hit team detailing what happened. He calls it first-hand testimony, but he has never released them to law enforcement. Why? In a court of law, the burden of proof is absolute. Testimony from cooperating witnesses, especially those with a history in organized crime, is notoriously vulnerable to cross-examination. A prosecutor would need corroborating forensic evidence, and after 50 decades, with no crime scene and no body, that evidence simply does not exist. The tapes, even if they exist and are authentic, would likely be deemed inadmissible hearsay without further proof. It's for this reason the FBI, despite having a strong working theory of the crime, has never been able to bring charges that could withstand legal scrutiny. They know what happened, they just can't prove it. On July 30th, 1982, 7 years to the day after he disappeared, Jimmy Hoffa was declared legally dead. His children have fought tirelessly for justice, a closure that remains just out of reach. His legacy is twofold. He was the architect of a labor movement that improved millions of lives, a legacy that survives. He is also the ghost at the center of America's most famous cold case, a symbol of a time when the mob operated with impunity, and a testament to the chilling reality that sometimes secrets are kept forever. The powerful men who ordered his death are gone. The world they ruled no longer exists. But Michael Franzese's claim leaves us with a final, tantalizing possibility. If the shooter really is still alive in a prison cell, a deathbed confession could still be coming. The truth, after 50 years, may yet surface. What do you think? Does Michael Franzese hold the final piece of the puzzle, or is this just another chapter in an endless mystery? And if the shooter is alive, will he ever talk? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for watching.